Okay, so today's topic is Thanatopsis. It's a poem. The essential question is what might you consider when annotating a poem? And the learning targets are to define unknown vocabulary, identify elements of romanticism, and identify techniques and structural features. So, William Cullen Bryant is the person who wrote the poem, and he was born in 1794 in Massachusetts. He practiced law, but he was always interested in poetry. He emulated Alexander Pope and other British poets, just like Phillis Wheatley did, so you might see some similarities between Bryant's poem and Wheatley's poem on being brought from Africa to America. Washington Irving, who wrote The Devil and Tom Walker, helped Bryant to get his poems published in Britain, so it's kind of cool that there's a connection between the two. And Bryant was only 17 when he wrote Thanatopsis, so your age, which is really impressive when you read it. When his editor read Thanatopsis for the first time, the person exclaimed, "That was never written on this side of the water." And basically, the poem seems very European. It didn't seem American at the time. So I'm going to read Thanatopsis to you, and I want you to follow along. So pause the video, open up the PDF that's attached to today's assignment, and then follow along as I read the poem. All right, it's called Thanatopsis. To him who in the love of nature holds communion with her visible forms, she speaks a various language. For his gayer hours she has a voice of gladness, and a smile and eloquence of beauty, and she glides into his darker musings with a mild and healing sympathy that steals away their sharpness ere he is aware. When thoughts of the last bitter hour come like a blight over thy spirit, and sad images of the stern agony and shroud and pall and breathless darkness, in the narrow house make thee to shudder and grow sick at heart, go forth under the open sky and list to nature's teachings, while from all around, earth and her waters and the depths of air, comes a still voice. Yet a few days, and thee the all-beholding sun shall see no more in all his course, nor yet in the cold ground where thy pale form was laid with many tears, nor in the embrace of ocean shall exist thy image. Earth that nourished thee shall claim thy growth to be resolved to earth again, and, lost each human trace, surrendering up thine individual being, shalt thou go to mix forever with the elements, to be a brother to the insensible rock and to the sluggish clod, which the rude swain turns with his share and treads upon. The oak shall send his roots abroad and pierce thy mould. Yet not to thine eternal resting place shalt thou retire alone, nor couldst thou wish couch more magnificent. Thou shalt lie down with patriarchs of the infant world, with kings, the powerful of the earth, the wise, the good, fair forms and hoary seers of ages past, all in one mighty sepulchre. The hills rock-ribbed and ancient as the sun, the vales stretching in pensive quietness between, the venerable woods, rivers that move in majesty, and the complaining brooks that make the meadows green, and poured round all, old ocean's grey and melancholy waste, are but the solemn decorations all of the great tomb of man. The golden sun, the planets, all the infinite hosts of heaven, are shining on the sad abodes of death through the still lapse of ages. All that tread the globe are but a handful to the tribes that slumber in its bosom. Take the wings of morning, pierce the barken wilderness, or lose thyself in the continuous woods where rolls the Oregon and hears no sound save his own dashings. Yet the dead are there, and millions in those solitudes, since first the flight of years began, have laid them down in their last sleep. The dead reign there alone. So shalt thou rest. And what if thou withdraw in silence from the living, and no friend take note of thy departure? All that breathe will share thy destiny. The gay will laugh when thou art gone, the solemn brood of care plod on, and each one, as before, will chase his favourite phantom. Yet all these shall leave their mirth and their employments, and shall come and make their bed with thee. As the long train of ages glide away, the sons of men, the youth in life's green spring, and he who goes in the full strength of years, matron and maid, the speechless babe, and the grey-headed man, shall one by one be gathered to thy side by those who in their turn shall follow them. So live that when thy summons comes to join the innumerable caravan which moves to that mysterious realm, where each shall take his chamber in the silent halls of death, Thou go not like the quarry slave at night, scourged to his dungeon, but sustained and soothed by an unfaltering trust. Approach thy grave like one who wraps the drapery of his couch about him and lies down to pleasant dreams. So, interesting story. When I was student teaching, my very first week, I was with a junior class, and their teacher was having them memorize the last stanza of this poem. And they had, I think she assigned it on Monday, and they had to do it Friday. And they had to get up in front of everyone one by one, and she had the copy of the poem in front of her, and she would mark anything they missed or left out or added, and then they would get a point deducted for everything, and then they'd get their sheet handed back so they'd know how they did. And all the students were really nervous about it. And so I said I would go first. And so I memorized it over the next few days. And then when the day came and everyone had to say it, I got up and said it first. So I still know it all these years later, 15, probably longer than that, years later. So 16 years later. Yeah, it's been a long time. Okay, here goes. I'm not looking. I know you can't tell if I'm cheating, but I'm really not. So, here goes. So live that when thy summons comes to join the innumerable caravan which moves to that mysterious realm, where each shall take his chamber in the silent halls of death, thou go not like a quarry slave at night, scourged to his dungeon, but sustained and soothed by an unfaltering trust. Approach thy grave like one who wraps the drapery of his couch about him and lies down to pleasant dreams. Don't tell me if I messed up. All right, so your assignment for today is what I'm going to call an annotation challenge. And what that means is I want you to see how many annotations you can get down in 20 minutes. Okay? Time yourself. Don't go over 20 minutes. Okay? You're just trying to get familiar with the poem. So, ignore the point values for now. I want you to define unknown vocabulary, so words you don't know, look them up and write the definitions in the margins. I want you to identify examples of romantic elements, so where you see people finding spirituality in nature instead of like in religion, where you see descriptions of nature, emotion, and the supernatural, which the emotion and supernatural, there won't be a lot, but you'll find at least one of each. I want you to label where you see similes, metaphors, personifications, alliterations, sibilants, assonance, rule of three, rhetorical questions, and then I want you to explain what you notice about the poem's structure. So you can number the stanzas, you can comment on the stanza length, like how many lines are in each stanza. Tell me about the rhyme or lack of rhyme. Tell me about the meter of the poem, so count syllables in every line. Like, you don't have to count syllables in every single line of the poem, but you will notice a pattern. And the type of verse, is it blank verse, is it free verse? Repetitions, do you see any of those? Caesura, do you see any of those? Enjambment, and if you don't know what something is, just Google it. So, like I said, time yourself. Then what I want you to do is I want you to go through and I want you to total up your points. So every word you defined, give yourself a point for. Every element that you found, give yourself 2 points for each. 3 points for every technique that you found, and 4 points for everything, all the aspects of structure that you've commented on. And then I want you to write your total number of points at the top. It doesn't affect your grade. All that affects your grade is that it looks like you worked on the poem for 20 minutes. But just for a bit of fun, just to see how many points you get. If you have any questions, let me know. Otherwise, I hope that after this you feel more familiar with the poem and you're ready to look at it in more depth next lesson.